The Cosatu Congress is underway in Midrand. The SACP's Nzimande is currently, or he's actually just finished addressing delegates. Nzimande reiterated his previous warning against the corporate capture of the ANC alliance. He also said that the ANC is united for African people. Earlier, Cosatu's acting General Secretary Becky Nchali said public servants are being attacked in their line of duty. He said teachers and nurses are particularly vulnerable, with parents attacking teachers when their children fail. He also condemned families who are attacking nurses for the bad state of hospitals. Nchali also decried the attacks on police, saying that not enough is being done to stop them. Well, for more from Midrand, we cross to our reporter Aldrin Sampear, who's at the Congress. Aldrin, a very good afternoon to you. So we're on to day 2. Let's start with a message coming from the SACP, Nzimande, taking the podium. He's urged Cosatu to build a stronger union, hasn't he?
Well, quite a detailed speech there from the SACP's General Secretary, emphasizing basically that Cosatu belongs inside the alliance, because there have been a lot of questions around the influence as well as the power of Cosatu, but also the SACP, and he insists that the SACP as well belongs in the tripartite alliance. He says there have been discussions and some people feeling that the SACP is merely a political school, it's merely a party of theory, and he says this time around the SACP will also be going to the shop floors and recruiting Cosatu members to make sure that they also join the SACP heading forward. He also emphasized on the Fees Must Fall campaign, but he made it clear that he was speaking in his capacity as the General Secretary of the SACP and not as Higher Education Minister, and he says that the campaign that should have been what should have been happening is that the campaign should be focused on business, capital, those people who have billions and trillions of rands in reserves that are not being used, and that's the money that should be invested in higher education. He says that the SACP will make sure that heading forward as part of their campaign that financing and funding higher education becomes part of their campaign heading forward.
And Aldrin, let's look at former union leaders, former Cosatu leaders that now find themselves in government, and they are addressing specifically policy, but they haven't been able to influence government policy perhaps as much as they should. Is this something that has formed part of discussions?
Well, this has been a problem brought up by commentators, for instance, looking at when when a union member becomes a member of parliament and then all of a sudden an executive member. And unfortunately, when you join the executive, you become a servant of the ANC. And as we know that the ANC defines itself as a left-center party, it says that it's not a socialist movement. And when those ministers are up there, those are some of the things that they are facing, that in terms of ideology, what ideology do I push when I'm serving as a minister under the ANC? Do I push the ideology of the Cosatu, or do I push the ideology of the ANC? And those are some of the questions that Becky Nchali has been asking when he delivered that political report. And I guess that's the debate that Cosatu will be having heading forth. If you look at the Minister of Labour, for instance, Midrand, who's also here and who will be giving a speech tomorrow, she is from a union as well, and Economic Development Minister Ibrahim Patel, he's from a union as well. So that's the question, and how do you make sure as Cosatu unions, when your leaders go all the way up to the executive, that you influence the ANC policy and making sure that the working class thrive?
A difficult few years for Cosatu, and with the recent expulsion of Nzimande, Aldrin, one wonders, are there any possible cracks to those expulsions beginning to surface? Are you picking that up at all at the Congress?
Well, yes, we know that Nzimande and NUMSA have already indicated that they won't be appealing their expulsions. However, though, that is still on the program. It's going to be taking place later this afternoon, or probably in the evening, considering that the program is running late. Some of the delegates have indicated that this is a matter that should be discussed. If you notice, for instance, some of the reports that came up and some of the comments that came up, if you look at Kgalema Motlante's comment that how do you expel a union that's NUMSA with 340,000 3,000 members, and that's the discussion that Cosatu should be having heading forward, as well as looking at Nzimande, his expulsion as well. And those are some of the discussions that will be taking place later today, and probably also around the amendment of the constitution of Cosatu, whether it should be amended. If you look at contestation that happened yesterday over Zingiswa Losi, the second deputy president of Cosatu, who once served as a NUMSA member, then all of a sudden a pop crew member, but still retained a position as a national office bearer.
All right, Aldrin, thank you very much for that update. We will, of course, get more throughout the day from the Congress currently underway at Gallagher Estate in Midrand. That was our reporter, Aldrin Sampear, live from the Cosatu Congress.